Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Ameen. I'm a naturopath and as well as a functional medicine expert. I welcome you all to this Insta Live Organic India, group of sessions. And today our topic is going to be about inflammation. So, while talking about inflammation, this is possibly the foundational discussion for all the series of talks we have been having from this Insta Live series. So, why? First of all, number one, inflammation is the foundation of almost all the degenerative chronic diseases that we are facing in today's world. Right. So let's go ahead and analyze inflammation, understand what is the root of it, where it comes from, and we will do certain tests to see whether you have any inflammation. And then we will look into what are the solutions, what kind of food you can eat, what herbs you can take, what lifestyle changes you can make in order to make the inflammation is kind of taken care. Anyway, before we go into the details, you may post all your questions along the way, and I promise by end of this session, I will try to attend to most of the questions as much as possible, and we'll have a discussion as well. But we'll just have a flow, so we'll just follow through the whole series of information. Okay, so first of all, what is inflammation? Okay, so many people have this negative anecdote towards inflammation, like it's always connected to negative. In fact, inflammation is neither bad nor good. All right, it's very much depends on where it comes from and what it actually does to us. Okay, first of all, you see, inflammation is a foundational basic response of your immune system. Whenever something happens to your body, the inflammation happens in order to basically take care of that injury, in order to basically repair the body damage. So this is the foundational basic principles of inflammation. Without inflammation, our injuries don't heal. Without inflammation, we don't get to live long enough. So inflammation is very, very important basics. All right. So number one, whenever there's a damage in the tissue of your body basically warrants inflammation, and the inflammation goes to repair the tissue damage. There are two types of inflammation. One is acute inflammation. The second one is basically chronic inflammation. The acute inflammation is very healthy. It's very important. You have a cut. The next day you start to notice it becomes reddish, inflamed. The third day the redness gradually disappears. The fourth day a scar forms. The fifth, sixth day the scar falls off, and then before you realize it, it's just gone. So this is acute inflammation. It's very important in every condition, and acute inflammatory response is essential for surviving on this planet Earth as a species. Now, what we hate and what we desist is basically a chronic inflammation. The chronic inflammation, it basically kind of become low grade. Like say, whenever your system is kind of exposed to a lot of degenerative changes, a lot of pollution, a lot of chemicals, which we look into it, which basically warrants an inflammation which is not acute enough, which is not intense enough. It's like very low, dull, and become chronic. That can start to cause a lot of degenerative changes, a lot of damages to different structures in the body, and that is what is at the root of most of the degenerative disorders. So it is the low grade chronic inflammation that we don't want. Acute inflammation is very, very essential. So as you know, inflammation, the foundation principles are basically like pain. There is always pain in there. There's always tenderness. When you touch it, it's painful. And then there is redness. The area where there is inflammation, it's always reddish in color. And if you touch it, it's always warm to touch. And most often than not, there's a bit of a swelling. So this is a typical sign of inflammation. And when it comes to inflammation, understanding the chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation of the arteries is the primary reason why people develop like stroke and heart related issues, like we call it heart attack in common terms, right? The second one, the same inflammation in the nerves is the reason behind Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, all the neurological disorders. The same inflammation also, there are so many different studies which actually connects to like cancer and other form of joint related chronic autoimmune disorders. So these are the foundation principle, and that's why we don't want a low grade chronic inflammation for too long in our system, which is very important. So talking about chronic inflammation, what causes it? Why? Like, one of the thing is chronic inflammation is very much associated with obesity, too much of fat, particularly the white fat, too much of subcutaneous fat in your body. Basically, because when you have like a lot of excessive this kind of fat, it tends to secrete, like the white fat basically secretes about 17 different hormones in your body, and 15 of them actually produces inflammation. It creates inflammation within your system. And so generally, just being on the overweight side, you already have like a foundational reason for developing all this inflammation. Why? We are constantly being exposed to a lot of different kind of toxins. We are talking about air pollution, your food is toxic, and there is a lot of chemicals and drugs. Like all these chemicals goes inside your body, and they can be very dangerous to all your internal organs and systems, particularly your vital organs. I'm talking about your brain, your heart, your liver, your lungs. So what your body try to do is you try to store away, because your kidneys cannot really process. Most of the toxins are not in a processable form, and more often than not your liver is also kind of overloaded with this toxin. So your body safely stores away most of this pollution and poisons in the fat cells, and these fat cells basically keeps holding of all this chronic toxins, which can cause inflammation. That's one of the reasons when people try to lose weight, their inflammation temporarily goes up, because the fat cells are leaking out a lot of detoxifying pollution. That's one of the primary reasons when you're thinking about detoxification. You want to work with someone who is very well trained. You want to make sure the products are like very complete, comprehensive, instead of just randomly taking one or two, so that way you make sure the toxins are basically eliminated safely out of your body without causing any kind of systemic damage. All right, so which is also one of the very, very important element. And what else? I was just doing a lot of research about what I can tell you all about inflammation, and a piece of it which was very interesting. So free radicals, there's a lot of free radicals from the smoke, from the pollution. The free radicals are the ones which causes a lot of damage to the cells. You can think of them like a cellular sharks going and biting all the healthy cells around, and it causes a lots and lots of internal damage. And this is why we fear inflammation, first of all. And free radical damage is the foundational reason for that. What is free radical damage? You can think of it like when you cut open an apple, you can turn it turning brown. That browning is nothing but a form of free radical damage. Okay, so now this free radical damage need to be neutralized by something called antioxidant. Like, you try this, when you cut open an apple, it is turning brown, but squeeze a bit of lemon on it and it doesn't turn brown anymore. It basically stops. Why? Lemon naturally has a very high level of vitamin C, and vitamin C is basically a form of antioxidant, so it basically protects any cell from being damaged or degenerated. And so in this case, they were studying about 3,000 different food items. I'm talking about 3,000 different food items, and there were like 16 different research team was involved in this particular study. And what they have actually realized was that all plant food, most of the plant-based food, has around 64 times more antioxidant than animal food. I'm talking about 64 times. It's not 64%. That's a lot. You are comparing like 1 rupees to 64 rupees. That's the kind of multiplication you need to look into. All right. And also among the plants, they looked at the lowest antioxidant score among the plants. They looked at the iceberg lettuce, which usually comes in burgers. It's like a salad leaf. It probably has the lowest score of antioxidants. It had the score around 17 antioxidant units. 17 is basically nothing. It's really, really minimal, right? But then they went into the animal food side, and they looked for the most healthiest of animal food and looked for the most amount of antioxidants. So they actually took like salmon fish, which is considered, it's very colorful, which is considered one of the healthiest among the animal food, and it had like 3. I'm only talking about from the antioxidant. Of course, salmon fish has all its healthy aspects, like healthy fats and complete protein aspects like that. But from antioxidant perspective, from inflammation perspective, it just only has like 3. So, which is not much. But if you're thinking like, okay, 17 to 3, I can tell you this, like, for example, berries. Berries have like more than 1000 antioxidant score. So there is this antioxidant scoring system called ORAC, which is oxygen radical absorbance capacity. So it's called ORAC, right? So this ORAC is basically like a health score given to a lot of different food items. And I will just list some of the common ones, what we are very familiar. And you can basically start eating a lot of these specific vegetables. I'm going to mention fruits or food items, and that can already help you with your inflammation, in fact. So one of the things is carrots. Carrots, the ORAC score is around 207. You want to eat carrots on an everyday basis. Broccoli is around 890. And a spinach, palak, it's around 1260. Strawberries, 1540. Blueberries, 2400. And our humble raisins, you want to soak it overnight. Simple raisins, it has around 2830. So these are all extremely highly rich antioxidant food. So you want to eat these ones on very regular basis. They are excellent for health. The other element is, okay, so you see, although we are talking about antioxidants, there are some kind of food that can basically cause inflammation. The one of the primary food that causes a lot of systemic inflammation is basically artificial sweeteners, particularly aspartame. Aspartame is one of the elements that actually causes a very high level of inflammation, and the other things like alcohol, smoking, and excessive sugar intake causes inflammation to go high, and as well as a lot of seed oils. We call this omega-6 oils. I'm talking about the corn oil, sunflower oil, soy oil, all the vegetable oils. They are all very, very high in omega-6, and omega-6 causes the inflammation to go up. And also sometimes some people are allergic to a lot of gluten and casein, which is basically a milk protein. They also can cause the inflammation to basically go up. So you may want to either avoid it or keep them to bare minimum. And so now the primary question comes back to you. If you're watching, like, do you have inflammation? Is there a way to know, like, because I'm saying about chronic low-grade inflammation. The damage is very low grade and it's like ongoing over a long period of time. So you want to make sure that you are not suffering any kind of inflammation, because you're not going to see any signs. If it is acute inflammation, you already know there is redness, there is inflammation, there is pain. But chronic inflammation doesn't present any of the symptoms. It is low grade and it's very long term. So the best way to do is, there are certain blood tests. You definitely want to take note of this. Very important. There are certain blood tests. There is something called CRP. What is CRP? It's called high sensitive C-reactive protein. So usually it is done in a blood test. You can talk to your doctor. Just mention, I want to see my CRP. So it's like China, Russia, and Pakistan CRP. Now, when you tell your doctor, he's going to basically order that blood test for you. When the number comes, you want it to be below 1. That is the standard. You want it to be below 1. The lower it is, the better. Up to 3 is all right. I mean, there are risks, like 1 to 3 is all right. Whenever it is more than 5, it is considered a very, very severe level of inflammation. You see, CRP is like a generalized inflammatory marker. It is not going to tell you specifically what's going on inside your body, but no matter what, because inflammation happens from your head to toe, it is not confined to one particular area, right? So you definitely want to notice whatever you do. You want to make sure that, say, if you're going for a detoxification program with someone who is a specialized, you want to check what is his CRP before, and then you go through a complete treatment protocol. By end of this, you want to go and check what is your CRP. It must have reduced if the program was very comprehensive. That is something you definitely want to look into. Okay, so you have an idea. And the higher it is, the worse the inflammation. And when you're talking about anti-inflammatory food and herbs and everything, when you take that, the inflammation starts to drop, and you can really track this particular number. Very important. Second, we are going to look into what are the other things you can do, what are the herbs you can take to lower the inflammation. I will definitely get there. The other thing in among the blood tests, the next thing you want to see is something called ESR. It's called erythrocyte sedimentation rate. All right, so it's called ESR. England, South Africa, Russia, ESR. So that's a next marker. Even this marker also, you want it to be as low as possible. The lower it is, better. Earlier they said it has to be less than 10. Now they have increased the number to less than 20 because most people have very high level of inflammation. But you also want to make sure this number is low. The third factor, which is probably the most important of all, is something called Hemoglobin A1c. All right, it basically shows how bad the diabetes, like when we talk about the sugar metabolism, we mentioned about it as well a few weeks before. So HB, hemoglobin is HB, A1c. It is it's an indication of sugar level of past 3 to 4 months. It is to see how much of sugar accumulated in your red blood cells. This is also a very healthy indication. The higher the A1c, the higher the inflammation. The lower the A1c, the lower the inflammation. Because you see, when you're talking about diabetes, foundationally it's an inflammatory disorder. It causes inflammation in your blood vessels. The lower you have it, the better it is. Really that simple. All right. So it's very important to also monitor the hemoglobin A1c. And finally, cholesterol. More often than not, when you notice your cholesterol levels are high, we do everything to lower the cholesterol. We do everything, right? Like we are all kind of scared about it. But what you need to know is inflammation and cholesterol is in the same path. As the inflammation goes up, the cholesterol goes up. Why? Cholesterol is inherently an anti-inflammatory element. Wherever there is damage, the cholesterol goes and takes care of that damage, right? So that's why it actually goes up. So a high cholesterol can be also a marker of high level of inflammation. So when you lower the cholesterol, the inflammation lowers down. It's really that simple. Do you know that statins, which is actually the medication that's taken for lowering cholesterol, is also a very, very good anti-inflammatory element. So that's how it basically lowers the inflammation. So thus it also helps to lower the cholesterol. So now we are just looking into, so we know to find out, whether you have cholesterol or not, and you have inflammation or not. And if you have, now we are going to look into the second aspect, like what you can do. All right, it's about solution. All right, the solutions are like simple fact, like for example, if you drink, say, broccoli, like the broccoli sprouts, they all are available nowadays in the powder form. If you happen to drink that, in the urine, they notice about 61% of benzene. Benzene is one of the acute pollutions, which comes from the air. They notice the benzene elimination about 61%. So broccoli, both eating and drinking in a powder form is excellent. If you're doing some green juice, make sure you just blend some broccoli along with that. It's one of the excellent ways to do it. The next study which shows like if you take like 3 grams of omega-3, I'm talking about fish oil, flaxseed oil, and as well as flax seeds, when you actually take that, it basically protects the heart and all form of inflammatory response from air pollution. If you are living in any of the cities in India, especially in New Delhi, there's a lot of air pollution. It causes very severe inflammation. And especially during this time with COVID spread, you really want to make sure that you take some form of omega-3 oils on regular basis. Particularly, my favorite is the flaxseed oil, but you can also take like fish oil on regular basis. It becomes very, very essential. The other thing is like taking regular B vitamin supplementation, which also has shown to be protective against any form of air pollution, which is also fantastic. So you want to take that on a regular basis. Then make sure there's a lot of fruits, particularly citrus fruits, like a lot of lemon, oranges, and as well as grapefruit, pineapple, plum. They all seem to be very powerful. Papaya seems to be a very powerful anti-inflammatory food. And make sure you drink about at least 2 to 3 liters of water. Why? When you drink a lot of water, your body finds it so much easier to keep the inflammatory particles on the lower side. And most of the inflammatory elements actually gets out of your body in the form of urination and bowel movements. So make sure you stay very well hydrated. And also just ensure like you take regular green tea, taking a lot of green vegetables. Those are all the best ways what you can do. Very specifically, you want to eat a lot of beetroots. beetroots are very, very high in a lot of nutrients which are basically anti-inflammatory. You want to definitely take that. And as well as a lot of berries. Berries are inherently powerful antioxidants. We just discussed that the Varax score for berries about 2540 if I'm not mistaken. So you want to eat a lot of berries, all kind of berries. I'm talking about strawberries, blueberries, all form of berries. You want to eat them. And pineapples, excellent. And as well as you want to include a lot of flax seeds in your diet, chia seeds in your diet. And the other great antioxidant element which we use on daily basis is basically two things: turmeric and as well as ginger. Whenever you have like throat inflammation, you just sip the ginger with turmeric, it feels so much better. From Organic India, they also have this particular tea with ginger and the turmeric mixed together. Organic, fantastic. Drink that, it will make a world of difference. So what are all the great steps you can do to lower your inflammation if you don't have it, to protect yourself from any form of inflammation? Is number one, eat all the colors. Like your food must have like a lot of different color, like red. We're talking about like red color, and as well as we're talking about oranges, yellow. Really eat the colors, the rainbow colors: green, blue, purple, white, all the colors. You're talking about carrots, they are rich in beta carotenes. We are talking about garlic, which is white, allicin, lemon, hesperidin, fantastic. And as well as tomatoes, they're rich in lycopene, very, very powerful antioxidant. And as well as walnuts for tocopherols, and black grapes for resveratrol. There are so many different antioxidants. So you just want to make sure that there's a lot of colors in your food. So eat all these different colors. Rainbow, that's a simple and basic secret. Eat rainbow. It already kind of helps to lower the inflammation. Why all these colors? What it basically does is, think like when you feel very hot on a sunny day now, what happens? You can run away and hide yourself, correct? Now a tree, it cannot hide itself. It has to protect itself because it cannot run away from the sunlight. So it actually creates all these antioxidants to protect itself from the impact of sun, strong sun on its body. So when you actually eat the particular plant, particularly in a concentrated form, you are taking all those antioxidants into your body, which your body basically start utilizing that to protect itself from this damage. So this is the simple logic behind it. So you just want to make sure that you absorb as much of this vegetable essence. We call it phytochemicals. Phyto is plant, chemicals from the plant. The more you put it, the better it is. The next one is basically going organic whenever possible. All right. And we also discussed about washing your vegetables with a bit of salt and soak them for about 10 minutes, which can remove like 95% of most pollutions in most cases. So you can use this Himalayan salt and soak your vegetables for about 10 minutes. It also helps. And as well as just eat a lot of vegetables, which is also fantastic. And buy organic whenever it is possible, if it is not too expensive, or grow your own vegetable, which is actually a fantastic choice. The third one, exercising. Exercise regularly, very essential. Why? One of the reason is that when you exercise regularly, there are two types of circulation. Of course, it's excellent for the heart. It keeps the blood moving. But most of the pollution actually moves through a secondary form of circulation called lymphatic circulation. The lymphatic circulation is a different form of circulation to carry the dead cells, very strong noxious toxins, if at all you are exposed to. And this particular system doesn't have its own pump. It purely relies on your exercise. So it becomes very, very essential for you to move. When you move, basically the lymphatic circulation start to get better, and that will definitely lower the inflammation, particularly if you have swelling in the legs, swelling in any particular joints. And when you actually move it a little bit, it gets a lot better, which is also something you can do. And as well as maintain a very healthy weight. As I told you before, the higher the weight, the higher the level of inflammatory chemicals being secreted inside your body. So you definitely want to do that. And consider fasting. When you fast, your body can get rid of a lot of different kind of toxins away from the body. There are different type of fasting with intermittent fasting. There are so many different choices and guidances. Definitely talk to your doctor before you go into any form of fasting. But fasting is one of the best ways to get rid of inflammatory particles, and as well as keep the inflammation on very low side, which is also you can do. So since we are talking about inflammation, one of the things what inflammation does is to age. it just ages you. You start to age very fast when you're on a high level of inflammation. So it's like, I was just doing some research, and it basically talks about something called age score. It's called advanced glycation end product. So it's basically a toxin on the other way. So this toxin basically ages you, means it causes a lot of inflammation, right? So I was just studying about it. So it basically says like, most of the meat products in today, if you are not growing it, it's not organic and clean. Most meat products on average has about 150 times, I'm talking about 150 times more ages, which is basically the particular aging chemical in meat comparing to any form of vegetable. We're talking about 150 times, and that's a lot of it. So you definitely don't want to eat so much of that. So you want to keep your meat intake, I won't say avoid it, keep the meat intake minimal. But on the other hand, you want to eat lots and lots of vegetable. Your plate, you want to fill it as much as vegetable as possible. I would say about 60 to 75%. You have to eat at least from 5 to 8 servings of vegetable on a daily basis, which is very essential in order to keep all your inflammation on the lower side. Then there are other studies which are coming up talking about mushrooms. Mushrooms are one of the fantastic ways to keep your immune system optimized, so the immune system can actually fight against inflammation. So just eating 10 grams of mushroom a day, 10 grams of mushroom can be just one little mushroom per day, can lower the risk of breast cancer by like 64%. And if you combine it along with a cup of green tea every day, it can lower your risk by like 89%. We are talking about 89% lowered risk of breast cancer just by eating some mushrooms and green tea. It can't get any simpler than that. So just drink green tea on an everyday basis instead of your regular tea, and have mushrooms at least few times a week. Just add mushrooms into everything, because mushrooms make all the food taste much better. The important thing is you just make sure the mushrooms are cooked well. It should never be eaten raw, which is one of the important elements. And the next one is, naturally, we want to talk about flax seeds. Flax seeds are rich in omega-3. It is very high in something called lignans. Lignans are very powerful anti-cancer compound, and you want to have a lot of them. It's also found in like sesame seeds, chia seeds. So you definitely want to eat a lot of them on a regular basis, because it actually lowers your risk of cancer and degenerative changes as well, which is great. And the other thing is basically eating a lot of pumpkin seeds. Pumpkin seeds are rich in zinc, and it's also rich in omega-3. It is also rich in calcium, iron. So eating pumpkin seeds on a regular basis, excellent. And as well as eating like sesame seeds. Do you know that sesame seeds is the only seed that has the highest amount of all type of vitamin E, alpha tocopherol, beta tocopherol, gamma tocopherol, delta tocopherols, and they are excellent, full spectrum, and they are the highest calcium concentration in the world. So you definitely want to eat a lot of that on regular basis. And you also want to make sure that you have enough of zinc inside your body. Zinc is very essential. It supports your body to fight against inflammation on a regular basis. So just make sure, again, zinc, where you can find it naturally, you can find it in like sesame seeds, you can find it like pumpkin seeds, your chana, pine nuts, cashews, sunflower seeds, mushrooms, beans, broccoli. All of this have very high level of zinc. So you want to have them on a regular basis. And the next thing is exercising. So those who have regular exercise, their illness kind of reduces almost by about 41%. There were studies like if like the frequency of infection reduces by like 41% if you just go for like half an hour walk on daily basis. So exercising is one of the best way you can actually do something you can do to keep your inflammation on the lower side, so which is very essential. The next thing can be taking chlorella. Chlorella is one of those algae. You can actually find it in the market, and take chlorella pills on regular basis, which is also great for increasing something called Immunoglobulin A, which is in your nose, mouth, so the viruses and bacteria don't even have access inside your system. And the same, we already talked about nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast is something you can find in health shops. And nutritional yeast is very rich in B complex vitamins. It is also something that you can take to improve your overall immunity. It can literally boost your immune power by almost about 200%. And the other things you can take is like things like vitamin D. I have some of it, like which I take on regular basis, like vitamin D3. It's an excellent for your immune system. And some of the herbs like turmeric, it's actually from organic India, which is great for building up your immune system. We are talking about moringa. Moringa powder is also excellent, or eat the real moringa on regular basis, which are all excellent. So talking about turmeric, turmeric plays a very important role when it comes to inflammation, because there's a chemical called curcumin, which is the most powerful anti-inflammatory element which is found among the herbs. And you definitely want to take turmeric on regular basis. You don't want to wait until you develop inflammation to prevent inflammation. We live in a world where inflammation is kind of omnipresent. It's everywhere. So we have no choice but to protect ourselves from any form of inflammation. So just take them on regular basis. The dose generally follow, like for example, I have shown the organic India turmeric formula. Follow the dose recommendations. It's like 2 capsules twice a day. That's more or less enough. Anything more, you may want to probably discuss with your doctor or any other physician, which will be great. And the other thing when it comes to inflammation is inflammation kind of affects everyone, the whole spectrum, particularly when it comes to kids. You know, very frequently they get this flu, infection, cold. We all are worried about kids going back to the school, what they're going to happen. The other thing you want to do is, it's called Chyawanprash. You know, Chyawanprash is one of the, I'm sure if you're an Indian, you definitely know what it is. Chyawanprash is one of the very traditional Ayurvedic formulation with like amla. Amla is like the amla berries, which is amlaki, and as well as with organic cane syrup, and as well as with honey. It's one of the fantastic immune building formula, traditional formula. You definitely want to use it. From organic India, they have this organic Chyawanprash, which is fantastic. It tastes excellent and the kids usually love it. Giving it to them on regular basis in given today's COVID situation, it's a big challenge, and it generally helps to protect your kids as well. So just taking that on regular basis is something fantastic you can do. The next thing, as I've shown you, talking about moringa. Moringa can taste quite strong, so you want to look for moringa in a capsule form. I think Organic India also has that. So you can take moringa on regular basis. Why moringa? You know, moringa has about 4 times more beta carotene than that of carrots, and 17 times more calcium than that of milk, and 25 times more iron than that of spinach. It has about 40 different type of antioxidants and 90 different nutrients. It is rich in all 8 different essential amino acids. It is one of the best nutrient element you can take to support your body, to put all kind of nutrition into your body, so that your body can actually fight against any kind of challenges you are throwing at it. And the final product I can mention is very essential, is the wheatgrass powder. You know, it's a super green wheatgrass powder. Wheatgrass powder is one of that powder which actually has like vitamin A, C, B1, B2, B3, B6, B12, the whole range of B vitamins, vitamin A, vitamin C, and vitamin K, folic acid, calcium, iron, all kind of nutrients. It's also comparatively, it's also the same element almost like moringa. So you can also take this on regular basis, and it also promotes your overall health. It thins the blood, it improves your bowel movement. It's a fantastic cleansing element. If you have constipation, wheatgrass powder is something that really helps. It also gives the glow to the skin, and especially it's excellent for the lungs. So it actually helps in all these ways, right? So this is something you definitely want to take on regular basis. So which are all the ones. So now, after talking about all this, so now we are just coming down to talking about like which are the ones what you can do, like particularly when it comes to inflammation. I'm just looking for the questions. So what are the 2-3 products which I can take on regular basis? That's the primary question. So as I told, the number one thing you want to take on regular basis is turmeric. So turmeric is one of the very essential herb. It's no choice, so you just want to take it on regular basis. The second one, as I told, moringa will be a great choice, and Chyawanprash. You can actually, Chyawanprash can be eaten by all ages, but nevertheless, especially for kids, Chyawanprash will be a better choice for boosting their body's ability to fight against inflammation and protect against inflammation as well. The other thing I can think of is basically flaxseed powder or flaxseed oil, and take a lot of green tea and mushrooms. So these are all the ones what you want to take definitely in all this. Well, there's somebody mentioning in Brazil they don't have these products. I mean, this is something you can walk into any health shops and you can actually find it. It doesn't have to be a particular brand, but on the other hand, you definitely want to look for something that is organic, because when it is organic, you're taking it for inflammation, but you don't want to take something that already has a lot of pollution in it that causes inflammation. So look for organic, and you can definitely connect to Organic India if you want a particular product to use. So definitely we'll be able to help you with that. The second thing is, there's another question: is this inflammation reversible? Yes, it is, and we do it all the time. And the lifestyle changes we discussed about, the supplement we discussed about, the herbs we discussed about, if you start taking them on regular basis, they always help to lower the inflammation. The inflammation is reversible, no question about it. But just track your inflammatory markers. Don't ignore it. Again, I told you about the CRP, which is C-reactive protein. We talked about the ESR, which is erythrocyte sedimentation rate. The third one we talked about hemoglobin A1c, which is also monitoring your sugar level. The fourth one we talked about your total cholesterol. So these are all the inflammatory markers in general. You want to track that and see whether it is getting better or not. The next question is what we can give to people who had a high level of CRP. Once again, the whole range of herbs and supplements. So we had all this discussion. So that is definitely something you can actually take. Okay, every green vegetable and fruit we take should be in which form? Raw, boiled, or cooked? Very good question. In general, most of these antioxidants are available when you don't deep fry them. If you salt them, if you steam them, if you boil them, even if you eat raw form is the best form, but nevertheless you don't want to cook a fruit. So fruit you can eat raw, but most of the vegetable, when you cook them, it's just like I like you to cook purely because when you cook you tend to eat more. All right, and the next best way to take vegetable is basically juicing, because we can actually juice a lot of vegetable into like in a cup. When you drink that, it really helps. So that's the best way to take it. But the more the vegetable, the better it is generally. All right. And the next one is, a lot of people say that the same type of oil shouldn't be used for cooking for a long time. Any oil for that matter, you shouldn't be heating it up too much. Number one, most of the seed oils are already damaged by the time you buy from the shelf, unless they are like extra virgin oil. Like for example, cold pressed oils. In Organic India, they have cold pressed sesame oil, cold pressed mustard oil, cold pressed coconut oil. When they are cold pressed, the fat components are not damaged. All right, so you definitely want to look for cold pressed oils. But whenever you're buying the other oils from the market, they are already kind of damaged. So it causes a lot of degenerative changes already. So you definitely want to keep your oil intake very low and use like very healthy oils like either olive oil, sesame oil, peanut oil, but all this must be cold pressed. So that's a foundational principle when it comes to oil. The next question is, I have vasculitis disease. Please tell me some medicine. Well, it doesn't work that way when it comes to inflammation. Okay, of course, we are talking about turmeric. We are talking about Moringa. We're talking about all these kind of different herbs which are basically anti-inflammatory. But the herb that's known to reverse vasculitis is basically amalaki. So you want to take amalaki regularly to reverse the inflammation of the vasculitis, and as well as brahmi. Brahmi is one of the fantastic herb that lowers the vascular-based inflammation. So turmeric, amalaki, and brahmi. And as well as there's another formulation called Heart Guard. It comes from Organic India as well, which is a fantastic combination of these herbs, and it actually helps to lower the vascular inflammation. So that is also something you want to take on regular basis, and it will make a world of difference. And the next one already, like what about calmic and inflammation? Okay, so calmic, it is definitely an anti-inflammatory, but it is more specific towards inflammation that is caused by infection, like bacteria and viruses. When they come inside your body, they actually causes this systemic inflammation. So there are different type of inflammation. When you're talking about turmeric, that is more towards inflammation associated with pollution. inflammation associated with toxicity. Calmic is more towards inflammation associated with infections, right? So when you take Calmic on regular basis, it causes lowered inflammation. So if you have like a fever, infection, inflammations, in that case, when you take Calmic, it actually lowers the inflammation. So that's the only difference. And the last question is, I take Amla juice in the morning and Moringa tabs in the afternoon. Is that enough? Shall I add flaxseed oil tablets to my diet? The thing is, the more you do, the better it gets, because the amount of inflammatory products we are exposed to is unsurmountable in today's world. It's a lot. So it's very, very essential to expose yourself to all possible anti-inflammatory food. So if you're taking amalaki, you're doing fantastic. You're taking moringa, which is fantastic. Yes, you can actually add vitamin D. You can add flaxseed powder. You can add wheatgrass powder. So there are so many different nutrients you want to add more and more. The more you do it, the better you get, basically. And don't forget, once again, track your inflammation. Don't assume. It takes a simple walk to the doctor and asking for it. Go and ask. Once you know what's the inflammatory marker, do everything to bring it below 1. That should be the rule. I think with that, you will get a lot better. All right. So that's being the foundation principle for today. Thank you so much for participating in today's session. I hope you have something to take home in today. Thank you so much.